They were already celebrating, smiling, toasting champagne in my father's office, talking about how they were finally free of me, free of the emotional daughter who didn't understand business. What they didn't know, what none of them bothered to check, was that I owned 82% of the company they were trying to sell. Before I tell you how my own family tried to erase me from the legacy I built, make sure you subscribe, because this story, it still gives me chills. My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 34 years old, and up until a year ago, I believed loyalty meant everything. Brooks Industrial Supply wasn't just a business. It was my childhood. I grew up doing homework in the break room, watching my father shake hands with contractors, listening to my mother answer calls like she ran the world. My younger brother, Mason, used to joke that the smell of metal and motor oil was our family perfume. When Dad got sick 5 years ago, everything changed. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The kind that doesn't give you hope, just timelines. I was the one who stepped in. Mason said he wasn't ready for that kind of pressure. Mom said she needed to focus on Dad. So I dropped everything, my own marketing firm, my own apartment downtown, and moved back home. I slept 4 hours a night. I renegotiated supplier contracts. I modernized our entire online system. I saved the company nearly $2 million in the first year alone. Dad used to squeeze my hand from his hospital bed and whisper, "You're stronger than they think, Lena." I didn't realize at the time what he meant. 3 months before he passed, he called me into his study. He looked so small in that leather chair. Fragile. But his eyes were sharp. "I need you to promise me something," he said. I knelt beside him. "Anything. No matter what happens, protect the company." I laughed softly. "Dad, it's ours." "Why wouldn't I?" He just stared at me. And for a split second, I saw something there. Fear. After the funeral, things felt off. At first, it was subtle. Mom and Mason having conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. Financial meetings I wasn't invited to. My emails suddenly getting missed. Vendors calling me asking why ownership was changing. Ownership? The word hit me like cold water. I confronted Mason one night in the kitchen. "Why are suppliers asking about a buyout?" He didn't even look guilty. Just irritated. "Because it's time to move on, Elena. Dad's gone. We can sell while the market's high." My chest tightened. "Sell? This company is our father's life. It's money," he snapped. "And we deserve to enjoy it." We. The word stung. As if I hadn't been the one holding everything together while he went on vacations and posted beach photos. I turned to Mom hoping, praying, she would shut this down. Instead, she sighed. "Sweetheart, you're too emotionally attached. This is business." Emotionally attached. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her who stayed up balancing payroll when cash flow got tight, who convinced investors not to pull out after Dad's diagnosis went public, who rebuilt the entire client network after 2 major contracts fell through. But I swallowed it. Because they were my family. The next few weeks felt like I was walking through fog. Meetings happened without me. Documents were drafted. I kept asking for transparency, and they kept brushing me off. "Relax, Lena. You're overthinking. Trust us. Trust us." The irony makes me laugh now. The first real crack came when I found a folder on Dad's old desk labeled acquisition proposal. It was dated 2 weeks before he died. 2 weeks. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. A private equity firm out of Chicago offering a full buyout. Aggressive timeline. Confidential clauses. My heart pounded in my ears. They weren't just thinking about selling. They'd been planning it. Even before Dad was gone. I felt sick. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Dad's words. Protect the company. What did he know? The next morning, I drove straight to our corporate attorney, Mr. Halpern. He'd worked with my father for over 20 years. When I walked into his office, he looked surprised. "Elena, I wasn't expecting you." I forced a smile. "I need to review the ownership structure." Immediately, there was a pause. A strange one. "Of course," he said slowly. "You haven't looked at it since the will was executed?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He adjusted his glasses, confusion flickering across his face. "Your father restructured the shares before he passed. The room felt smaller, harder to breathe. Restructured how? He opened a file and slid it across the desk. And that's when everything started to shift. The first thing I saw was my name. Elena Marie Brooks. Not once. Not twice. Over and over again across the majority shareholder section. 82%. I blinked. I actually blinked like maybe my eyes were lying to me. There has to be a mistake, I whispered. Mr. Halpern shook his head gently. Your father transferred controlling interest to you 3 months before his passing. The remaining 18% was divided between your mother and Mason. The air left my lungs in one slow, shaky breath. He said you were the only one actively protecting the company, Mr. Halpern added quietly. He wanted to make sure no one could dismantle it without your approval. No one. Including them. Suddenly, Dad's fear made sense. The late-night phone calls he'd taken alone. The way he asked me to promise. He knew. And they knew too. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Does my family know I control 82%? Mr. Halpern hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. They were present when the will was read, he said carefully. But the share distribution was discussed in legal terms. It's possible they didn't fully understand the implications. Possible. Or they thought I was too naive to check. I walked out of that office in a daze. Not empowered. Not triumphant. Just shuddered. Because this wasn't about money anymore. It was about the fact that my own mother and brother had been planning to sell something they didn't even have the power to sell without me. They were going to push me aside. I drove home and sat in my car for 10 full minutes, staring at the house I grew up in. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept hearing Mason's voice. It's time to move on. And my mother's. You're too emotionally attached. Emotionally attached. No. I was loyal. When I walked inside, they were both at the kitchen island. Papers spread out. Smiling. Mason looked up first. Good, you're home. We were just finalizing numbers. Finalizing. Like I was some intern who needed updating. I dropped my purse on the counter. Finalizing what, exactly? Mom didn't even look nervous. The buyout. It's a strong offer, Elena. We'd all walk away very comfortable. All. I stared at them, searching their faces for even a flicker of guilt. Did you think to include me? I asked quietly. Mason rolled his eyes. Lena, you don't have to be involved in every little detail. Every little detail. Selling the company my father built from nothing was a little detail. I felt something inside me crack. Do you even know who controls the majority shares? I asked. Silence. Mom frowned slightly. Your father divided everything evenly. We each have our portion. Evenly. They never checked. They never cared enough to verify. They just assumed I'd go along with whatever they decided. I let out a small, humorless laugh. That's not how it works. Mason's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? I looked at my mother first. I wanted her to see it in my eyes. You tried to sell a company you don't control. The room went still. Mom blinked. Excuse me. I own 82%, I said. My voice didn't shake this time. Dad transferred controlling interest to me before he died. The color drained from Mason's face. That's not possible. It is. And you would have known that if you'd bothered to read the documents instead of assuming I'd just sign whatever you put in front of me. Mom's lips parted, but no words came out. For a moment, I saw it. Not sadness. Not regret. Calculation. Mason recovered first. Fine, he said sharply. If that's true, then we'll negotiate as a family. As a family. Now he wanted unity. You mean you'll negotiate because you need my signature? I replied. His eyes hardened. Don't do this, Elena. Don't turn this into a power trip. A power trip. After years of carrying this business on my back, my chest tightened. The tears finally came, but I didn't hide them. You were going to cut me out, I said, my voice breaking. You had meetings without me. You drafted proposals. You treated me like I was in the way. Mom finally spoke, her tone colder than I'd ever heard it. We were protecting you. You're too sentimental. You would have dragged this out. There it was. Not love. Not protection. Control. They didn't think I was strong enough. Smart enough. Ruthless enough. I felt like I was standing outside my own body, watching my family choose money over me in real time. For a second, I almost gave in. Almost said, fine, let's sell it. Let's just split it and move on. Because fighting your own blood is exhausting. But then I heard Dad's voice in my head. Protect the company. And something inside me steadied. The tears stopped. I wiped my face slowly and looked at them. Really looked at them. You don't get to erase me, I said. Calm now. Clear. You don't get to decide that my work doesn't matter. Mason scoffed. So what? You're just going to block the sale out of spite. No, I replied softly. I'm going to run the company the way Dad trusted me to. Mom's expression hardened. If you refuse this offer, you're choosing the business over your family. The words hit deep. But for the first time, I understood something. They had already chosen. They chose profit over loyalty. Convenience over legacy. Control over trust. I straightened my shoulders. If protecting what he built makes me the villain in your story, I said quietly, I can live with that. And in that moment, I wasn't the emotional daughter anymore. I was the majority owner. And I was done being underestimated. The next morning, I walked into Brooks Industrial Supply before anyone else. The building felt different. Not heavy anymore. Not fragile. It felt like it was waiting for me. For the first time, I wasn't walking in as the daughter trying to keep peace. I was walking in as the controlling owner. I called an emergency board meeting. Mason stormed into the conference room 20 minutes later. Mom followed, tight-lipped and silent. The two minority board members looked confused, maybe a little nervous. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam papers. I simply handed out copies of the shareholder structure. I will not be approving the sale, I said calmly. And effective immediately, I'm restructuring executive authority. Mason laughed under his breath. You're overreacting. No, I replied. I'm correcting a mistake. I slid another document across the table. As majority shareholder, I'm removing Mason Brooks as CFO. The room went completely still. His face went red. You can't just fire me. I can, I said softly. You attempted to negotiate a full acquisition without the consent of the controlling shareholder. That's a breach of fiduciary duty. For the first time in his life, my brother looked small. Mom finally spoke. Elena, this is too far. Too far. Selling the company behind my back wasn't too far. Undermining me wasn't too far. But holding them accountable was. I met her eyes. Dad trusted me to protect this company. I'm doing exactly that. Mason pushed back his chair violently. You're destroying this family. I stood up slowly. No. I'm refusing to let you destroy what he built. There's a difference. Security escorted him out. I didn't feel joy watching it. I didn't feel revenge in some dramatic, cinematic way. What I felt was relief. Clean. Sharp. Necessary. Over the next few weeks, things got uglier. Lawyers called. Emails flew. Accusations were made. Mom stopped speaking to me completely. Mason tried to rally staff against me, whispering that I was power-hungry. But numbers don't lie. The company's performance under my leadership spoke for itself. Revenue was up. Client retention was the highest it had been in 10 years. Our new digital expansion plan was already attracting national contracts. When the private equity firm reached back out, assuming negotiations were continuing, I personally scheduled the call. The representative sounded confident. Smooth. We're excited to finalize this, Ms. Brooks. There won't be a finalization, I said evenly. Brooks Industrial Supply is not for sale. There was a pause. Your family indicated. My family does not control this company, I cut in. I do. Silence. Then a careful, respectful shift in tone. Understood. And just like that, it was over. No champagne celebration. No dramatic collapse. Just clarity. 3 months later, I made another decision. I offered to buy out my mother and Mason's combined 18% at fair market value. Generous terms. Clean exit. Mason didn't want to accept at first. Pride mostly. But he needed liquidity after the acquisition deal fell apart. Eventually, he signed. Mom signed too. Quietly. Without looking at me. The day the transfer finalized, I walked through the warehouse floor alone. The workers waved. Some smiled. A few clapped softly. Not because I fired my brother, but because they knew the company wasn't being gutted. Their jobs weren't being sold to a firm that would strip it down and flip it for profit. That was the real victory. I kept Dad's old office exactly the same. Same leather chair. Same framed blueprint of the first warehouse he built. Sometimes I sit in there after everyone leaves. I think about how close I came to folding. To choosing peace over principle. To letting them convince me I was too emotional. Here's what I learned. Being emotional doesn't make you weak. It means you care. But caring doesn't mean you let people walk over you. Not even family. Especially not family. My relationship with my mother will probably never be what it was. Mason and I barely speak. Holidays are quieter now. Smaller. And yes, that hurts. But when I look at the company, stronger, growing, hiring more people than ever, I know I made the right choice. They thought I was the sentimental daughter who would cry and sign. They didn't realize I was the majority owner. 82%. And 100% done being underestimated. If this story reminded you that protecting your worth sometimes means standing alone, make sure you subscribe. You never know who needs to hear that walking away from betrayal doesn't mean you lost. Sometimes it means you finally took control.